Chapter 5 of Anastasia again. Now, in the chapter before, they went to go look at a house, and as you know, Anastasia doesn't want to move, so she made a plot. She made a plan with her brother that he would cry, and that would mean that they weren't going to buy the house. But instead, they arrive at the house. It's beautiful. There's a tower, there's a study, there's a room for the mom to do an art room, and so everyone's feeling very happy and falling in love with this house. Chapter 5. Boy, Anastasia, I don't know, said Jenny. I said I would help you pack, and I will help you pack. She put a stack of Anastasia's paperback books into a carton, half-heartedly, like you see here. But boy, Anastasia, I really hate it that you're moving. You've been my best friend ever since we were in kindergarten. Yeah, said Anastasia glumly, sad. Except for that one summer when Lindsay Kavanagh moved in down the street. Yeah, Lindsay Kavanagh, that jerk. She was your best friend that whole summer. I wanted to kill myself. Yeah, you know why it was, though. Her father was a filmmaker, remember? He was going to use Lindsay and me in a movie. Big deal. Yeah, big deal. We had to get up at 5 a.m. and he took us out to Crane's Beach. And we had to run on the beach with no clothes on while he took movies. When my father found out he did that, he almost broke old Lindsay Kavanagh's father's neck. Yeah, I remember, Anastasia giggled. It wasn't a thing or anything, though. You were only 7 years old, for Pete's sake. Actually, it was probably a pretty good movie. The sun was coming up and everything, and we were the only people on the beach, except birds. Nobody ever got to see it, though, because my father made him destroy the movie. I sure hated you that summer. You were so conceited. Well, I thought I was a big movie star. Except for that summer, we've always been best friends. Are you taking this or throwing it away? She held up a battered math arithmetic book. Good grief. Where did you find that? It was under your bed. I thought I lost it. My mother had to pay the school for it. I guess you better throw it out. The arithmetic book sailed into the big trash can that was in the middle of Anastasia's room. Can I have this picture of you? I don't want to forget what you look like. Jenny held a Polaroid snapshot of Anastasia in her hand. Sure, but it's ugly. And you're not going to forget what I look like anyway, Jenny. Aren't you going to come visit me? Robert Giannani said that he was going... Anastasia stopped talking abruptly and blushed. Who? Robert Giannani? What's Robert Giannani going to do? Nothing. What do you mean, nothing? Robert Giannani's going to visit you? Isn't he, Anastasia? He's going to visit you? I can't believe it, that jerk. Do you think I should keep this orangutan poster or throw it away? I've had it about 5 years and I'm kind of bored with it. Throw it away. And quit changing the subject. Are you going to let that jerk Giannani visit you? Did you invite him? No, I didn't invite him. He invited himself. But he isn't so bad, Jenny. He really isn't. He's kind of a jerk, but not full-fledged. Jenny threw herself onto Anastasia's bed, held her stomach, and groaned. You like him, don't you? You actually like Robert Giannani? I can't believe it. I don't like him. I just don't hate him anymore. Traitor, 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 traitor. Why didn't you tell me? I forgot. You didn't forget. You were embarrassed. Yeah, I was embarrassed. Jenny lay on the bed with her eyes closed. Well, guess what? What? There was a long silence. Then Jenny took a deep breath. I don't hate Michael Gottlieb anymore, either. That jerk? He's not really a jerk. Really, he isn't, Anastasia. The other day he came over and we went down to the store and got popsicles, ice cream. He was sort of nice all of a sudden. Why didn't you tell me? I forgot. Liar. Jenny looked at Anastasia and grinned. Anastasia began to laugh. Jenny began to laugh. Anastasia could hardly talk because she was laughing so hard, but finally she sputtered. Michael Gottlieb? He always wears that stupid baseball cap. Jenny doubled up, laughing, and gasped, Robert Giannani? That briefcase? That gross briefcase? For the rest of the day, they couldn't look at each other without making the kind of semi-sneezy noise that holds back a brand new laugh. It was hard packing. Not hard on the muscles, Anastasia had pretty good muscles, but hard on the head and hard on the heart. Anastasia found her mother crying one afternoon, not curled up on a bed or smashing your fists into the pillow sort of crying. Just silent, tears running down your cheeks crying. Her mother was standing in the pantry, which is where they do the laundry, packing dishes, and there were tears on her face. Did you hurt yourself? Her mother sniffled and smiled. No, I'm just sad. Anastasia picked up a plate and looked at it. It was an ordinary yellow plate. It made her think of spaghetti and of meatloaf. It didn't make her feel sad. If I were you, I would feel good about this plate, she told her mother. Most people in the suburbs eat off plastic dishes. Assumptions again. No, really they do, except when they eat TV dinners. Those they eat right out of the tin tray. Her mother leaned against the cupboard and began to laugh. Anastasia, haven't you figured out yet that your assumptions all turn out to be wrong? Take the new house, for example. You thought we'd have to move to a split-level house in a development. Instead, we found a wonderful house with a tower. Anastasia shrugged and grinned and smiled. How did you become such an expert on suburban life anyway? Told you, books and TV, mostly TV commercials. You never see city people worrying about ring around the collar. Well, we won't worry about it either, not even when we live in the suburbs. Why were the dishes making you cry? It wasn't the dishes. I was feeling sad about the stained glass in these cupboard doors. I've always loved the stained glass. Anastasia looked at the stained glass windows of the cupboards. She remembered when Sam was a tiny baby, and they had kept his little crib in the pantry. She used to open the cupboard door, stand behind it, and make faces at the baby. The very first time Sam had smiled was when Anastasia had begun making a purple and amber face at him, wiggling her nose. Oh dear, now Anastasia was starting to feel sad too. She wiggled the loose pane of coloured glass. Maybe we could take it out and take it with us, Mum. No, it doesn't belong to us. Of course it belongs to us. It has always been ours. All my life I remembered this stained glass. But we don't own this building, or the things that are part of it. So when we leave, we have to leave all these things for the next people who will live here. Good grief, Anastasia hadn't even thought about someone else living in their apartment. All of a sudden, she thought of all the wallpaper in her bedroom. She had chosen it herself when she was 8. It was blue and white, with people riding old-fashioned bicycles on it. Some of them were playing flutes and violins while they rode. She didn't want anyone else to have that wallpaper, but there was nothing she could do. Well, there was something. She thumped her way down the echoey hall to her room, which seemed hollow and empty now because there's nothing in it. The rug was rolled up and the curtains had been taken down. Her desk usually cluttered with paint boxes and notebooks and comics, but it was bare, except for the goldfish bowl where Frank swam lazily back and forth. Frank, she said, don't tell anyone that I'm doing this. Frank made a kissing face at her. Frank's the fish. Anastasia found a pencil stub in the trash can. She knelt on the bare floor in a corner of the room and wrote on the wallpaper in her best printing, "This is my room forever, Anastasia Krupnik." That made her feel better. Then she thumped down the hall to her father's study. He was standing on his own bare desk by the wall with his back to her, and he jumped, scared and startled when she came in. He looked guilty. Anastasia was an expert on guilty looks. "What are you doing, Dad?" she asked. "Nothing," he said very quickly. Nothing was what you always said when you were doing something that you felt guilty about, and someone came along and asked what you were doing. Anastasia was an expert on that. Either you said nothing, or you whistled, or hummed. Her father began to hum. Humming is like this. He did a little drumming rhythm on his desk top with his fingers. "You all packed in here?" she asked, looking around the bare room. "Yep, all ready for the movers. It sure looks empty with the books packed, doesn't it?" "Yeah, I suppose someone else will move new books in. Probably their books won't be as good as your books, though. Probably no one else will have a first edition of The Old Man and the Sea, her father said, and that seemed to make him feel better. I think I'll have a beer. He headed and went for the kitchen. When he was gone, Anastasia saw suddenly the place on the wall of the study where, in his best writing, very small with his fountain pen, he had also written his name. Anastasia found Sam in his bedroom, sitting on the floor, crying silently. "Oh, what's wrong, old Sam?" she asked. "I'm feeling sad about my blankie," he said. "Oh, Sam, I'm sorry. I was just teasing when I said your blankie couldn't come to the new house. Of course it can. Of course it can come." Tears trickled down Sam's cheek. "But it wants to live here," he whispered to her. "It told me so." Anastasia thought and thought. "I have an idea, Sam," she said finally. She ran to the kitchen and got a pair of scissors. Then, sitting beside Sam on his bedroom floor, she carefully cut his ragged yellow blanket in half. "There," she said. "Now part of it can live here and part of it can come to the new house." She folded one half and Sam showed her where to put it, on a dark, narrow shelf in the closet. He wrapped the remaining half around his hand and held it against his cheek, and sucked his thumb, testing how it worked with only half. After a moment, he smiled. "Okay," he said. "It's okay." "Good." "I'm not a baby," he reminded her firmly. "I know, Sam. I know you're not a baby." She called Jenny McCauley on the phone. "The moving van's coming in about an hour," she said, "so I called to say goodbye." "Will you have a telephone in the new house?" "Sure. Is it long distance?" I don't know. Not long distance like Milwaukee or anything." "Well, call me and tell me the number." "I will. And call me and tell me everything that happens." "Yeah? Like if you meet any boys?" "Okay." "Or if Casablanca ever comes to a movie theater out there, call me and I'll figure out a way to get there. Don't ever go to Casablanca without me. Promise?" "I promise. Don't you either." "I won't. And if old Briefcase ever comes to visit, call and tell me." Anastasia giggled. "Okay." "Or if you get any new clothes or anything." "Okay, and you, Jenny, if you read any good books, call and tell me. Or if Michael Gottlieb comes over, old baseball cap." Jenny giggled. "I still can't believe you're moving, Anastasia." "Me either. Me neither. Come and visit me." "I will. Promise?" "I promise." Then suddenly Anastasia was too sad to talk any more. Very quickly, before she began to cry, she said goodbye and hung up the telephone. Everything was packed, and the moving van was pulling up to the front door. But Anastasia hadn't packed Frank Goldfish. She was going to carry him with her in his bowl to the new house, and she hadn't packed her notebook. Now she sat down on the bare floor, beside Frank in his bowl, and looked around. The moving men were coming in, and she could hear their heavy footsteps on the bare floor of the apartment. Her entire life was packed into the cardboard boxes, except for the life that she was leaving here. "The mystery," she wrote quickly, before they got to her room, "of saying goodbye." She reread it with satisfaction. Now that, she thought happily, is a title. And that's the end of this chapter. Okay, very simple chapter, getting ready to move. She writes her name on the wall. So does her father. Her mum's sad as well. Even Sam the baby's sad. But I kind of get the feeling she's a little bit